Well, 65 of the last 5, 112 of the last 10. That gives India 179 for 2. Back-to-back half centuries for Virat Kohli. Rohit Sharma too among the runs. It did seem like a bit of a struggle to get those boundaries in the first 10. But Surya Kumar Yadav with a 50 of his own in half the time. That ensures India give the Dutch 180 to chase after winning the toss and batting first themselves. This is our halftime show on Maruti Suzuki Presents ESPN Cricket for T20 Timeout. I've got Anil Kumble with me, so too senior data analyst ESPN Cricket for Gaurav Sundararaman. What sort of score is 179, Anil?
I think it's a par score, I think, on this surface. We have seen 200 plus,
yes,
especially from New Zealand and South Africa. I thought India were a bit sluggish in the first 10, 12 overs. And then Surya played a Surya innings to sort of India take them to 179, which is a pretty good score, I think, on this surface, especially against Netherlands.
Yeah, I mean, if you put all those factors in, you think India should win this regardless. But when you see a score like 179 for 2 GS, what strikes you first?
That's exactly what I was telling off air as well. Like, for losing 2 wickets, you would expect them to score slightly more. And you know, the entry point of Surya again, in such games, you would want him to come a bit more earlier to get that score up and running, especially after, like Anil said, the sluggish power play. So yeah, but you know, India generally don't try to tinker too many things, especially the top 3. So unless they're like some 100 for one in like 10 overs, maybe we can see Surya. But otherwise, I feel that they should have sent in Surya early and maybe given more chances to the others by taking more risks. And Rohit also got a couple of lives, so that kind of maybe extended his stay there. Maybe if he had gotten out of those things would have been a bit different as well. But what's interesting to note is they played in the same pitch. I heard the commentators also say quite a bit that the surface is slow and it's sluggish. I just wanted to ask Anil that moving forward, there are a lot of matches in the same venue twice. So is it an advantage, disadvantage to play second, or is the toss going to become crucial in the second game with the pitch getting slower and slower? Yeah,
probably. If it gets slower and slower, yes, one advantage is the team playing in the second game would know exactly what the surface is. But in any case, you know, whether you're playing first or whether you're playing only one game or the second game, you tend to assess the conditions in the first couple of overs and then sort of send a message back to the dugouts suggesting that, look, this is what we are looking at in terms of a par score. Some number needs to be there. I know batters don't like some sort of a number saying, okay, should we get to 180? Should this be a 200 score? What's the score? But I think some sort of a communication would have come from the batters at the crease to the dugout, suggesting that, look, this could be a 180 wicket. So I think that's probably why they went about scoring 180. Yes, there are different ways of getting to 180. Yeah. So India feels that wickets in hand, at least till the first 10, 11 overs, and then going hard. That's the way they approach.
So I'm curious to know what your observations would have been about the intent in those, say, over the first 6, the middle period. Did you see enough intent to try and go after the Dutch bowling, and because of the challenges possessed, perhaps they couldn't, or would you have liked to see more intent?
No, especially in the first 6, I think in a power play, you know, especially on a wicket like this, you would want to see more intent. I thought India just batted through saying, okay, this is 30 in a power play.
Less than a run a ball in a power play against the Netherlands.
Yeah,
whatever the
on
pitch.
A wicket like this, I think no matter what the pitch, I think you would expect just batters to come in and hit a few boundaries, or at least show the intent to hit boundaries. There was just, you know, let's wait and see kind of an approach. But it's sort of understandable because Rohit hasn't really scored runs in the recent past, so he wanted to get his eye in, and he did play a good hand at getting a half century. That augurs well for India. With your top, out of the top 4, if your top 3 are in form, that really augurs well.
KL Rahul's wicket, if you could just run through that quickly. It's a bizarre one. We spoke so much at length about him. Today was an opportunity. I wonder if you can read into a batter not taking a review when there was clearly a case for it to be, to tell you perhaps what's going on in the mind.
No, I don't know. That's probably what is going on in his mind, so I don't know. Yeah. At those kind of situations, I think sometimes the non-striker also stops and says, okay, should we review? Maybe it looked in line from that angle. We don't know in a fast motion, because otherwise I'm sure Rohit would have sort of stopped. Rahul to say, look, let's take a review. Perhaps they felt that it would have hit the stumps. Sometimes an umpire's call, I know it, you won't lose a review, but sometimes an umpire's call as a non-striker would suggest that, okay, that's out. So maybe that was one of the reasons.
All right, Kohli's innings now. I'm always curious to see how players back a big innings with their next one. Tells you a lot about a player. Anil, were you expecting him to show fluency perhaps from the start? It looks like Kohli had to work hard also for his half century today. Went at about a run a ball for his first 30 balls, but for a couple of overs, that strike rate may have been under 140. It's just over 140 after he's played 44 balls. How do you break that? How do you analyze that innings?
I think that's the way he sort of bats. If you look back at the entire T20 career, international career, whenever he's batted, he's looked to bat through the innings, and he starts off ones and twos if there's a ball to be hit. He doesn't take undue risks, especially at the start, to hit boundaries, unless he steps out and then if there's a ball, he goes for it. Today was such case. Yes, we did speak about the sluggishness of the surface as well. Maybe that was contributed, that was a contributing factor for Virat to sort of take his time. Otherwise, you would have expected someone who's come with that kind of confidence to just come in and boss the Netherlands at the start. But I thought, overall, India would be happy with the 179. Would you have wanted to get a lot more in the first 10? Yes.
Sure.
But I thought overall, Surya sort of compensated for that.
Sure. I think we usually have this chat when we talk about anchors, GS, don't we? Of what is the definition of an anchor in T20 cricket now. And if you are anchoring at 140, you're okay, even if you end up with that 140. So Kohli's innings today is all right then. Rohit Sharma struck at 135.
But it's a risky approach, Raunak. Anytime you can lose your wicket. If you actually go through like what Kohli did today, then it's fine. All looks good. But at 21 of 20 or 21 of 23, you get
at
out.
Any point in the first 35 balls.
You get out, then it kind of upsets a lot of plans. So that is the risk in that approach. But a player like Kohli, who generally doesn't lose his wicket that often, especially for India, in T20 eyes, he looks very good. His average balls per dismissal is very high. So for a player like Rizwan and Kohli, who are not easy to get out as such, I think this approach will work more often than for some players who cannot play that long. So
Sure.
I think it's a discussion always we do in hindsight, but when they actually get out is when we need to actually stop and say, hey, this, if it costs them a semi-final because of this, that's when we kind of start worrying about this approach. But most of the time players like Kohli tend to bat through, so it's okay.
I guess a lot of teams would say, Anil, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that we can afford one player like that. So India, if they've given that role to Rohit, then they want, so to Kohli, they'd like everybody else to sort of go hard around him. Sometimes we tend to believe India perhaps more than one player doing that though.
No, I think that's where I think the power play becomes really crucial, because you can't afford to sit back and wait for things to happen after the power play, because you need to take advantage unless the wicket demands, the conditions demand that you need to be circumspect in the power play. That's understandable. When you're batting first especially, I think the power play is something where you have to dictate and you need to take those risks because of the field restriction. I mean, that's the best possible opportunity as a batter to go after and hit those boundaries, and that's where I think India need to sort of keep in mind with Rohit coming back in form, and hopefully Rahul will hit his straps. The next game could be different.
I'm going to just like throw all the numbers and data away, because then we talk about sluggish pitch, having to take your time. That's how you play role of the anchor. And then Surya Kumar Yadav comes and does what he does. And I'm sure top batters would tend to think that you unnecessarily make us look bad. Surya comes and it's 50 or 25 like that.
No, I think it's all depending on what the strategy is, what the kind of role is. I mean, whether you want all your 6 batters to just go from ball 1, or would you want one batter to bat through 20 overs, not necessarily keep at the same strike rate. I think what was really creditable for Virat, even in the previous game against Pakistan, was that his last 20 balls came at 200 strike rate. If that had come at less than 200 or less than 160, then you're in trouble. And that's exactly what he did. So I think that's what you want to look at, and not necessarily look at the overall batting that he did. Because the last 10 overs is where the game is won or lost. And if that gets really sluggish because of the batters, then it becomes an issue. So that way I think, as long as you have that kind of a batting effort whoever it is,
Yep.
whether it is Surya or Virat or Rohit or Rahul or Hardik or DK, anyone who comes there, I think if you can look to do that, especially when you're batting first, things should be fine.
All right. Should things be fine then? 179 should be enough for what is the weakness of the Dutch team. Their batting. Their bowling has actually been their strongest suit in this T20 World Cup. Let's get a quick prediction. Easy for India? Or do you think if 180 the Dutch should be saying that's not out of reach yet? It's not like they've outbatted us.
No, I think you should give credit to the Dutch bowlers. I thought they bowled really well. Pringle was again excellent in his spell. I don't know why the leg spinner only bowled 1 over on this wicket, but nonetheless, I think Dutch should bat 20 overs and then see where they get to. Power play is very important. They need to take advantage if you have to get 118 20 overs. So I think it should be a easy win. However, the Dutch will sort of fancy themselves if they get off to a good start.
Yes.
I think, yeah, just echo Anil's thoughts. I think 50-60 runs is what they might fall short by, but power play, it's not going to be easy to hit Bhuvi and Shami over here.
Of course.
So, yeah, I think India should win this easily.
Yeah, for the sake of a contest, let's hope Maxwell gets off to a start and maybe puts India under a little bit of pressure so that they can at least test those skills that they need. You also have an Akshar Patel who's only bowled the 1 over in the tournament. India would like him to get some bowling time. You might see him in play. Spinners to play a part, Anil, even though the lights are coming on at the SCG and the ball may do a bit.
Yes, I think bowlers like Ashwin and Akshar who hit the deck, especially in a T20 format, will get some purchase. I mean, if there's a bit of stop and I don't think there was much turn.
Yeah.
There was certainly stopping. The odd ball was stopping. So I'm sure it will continue to do. There won't be any dew. That's the best part. So I think overall the pitch should remain the same.
All right, Anil, GS, thank you very much. More from you after the 20 overs or however long it takes for this game to conclude. So let's pick up the conversation then and see if India have claimed top spot in this group, or are we in for a surprise? It's highly unlikely. You think India have more than enough, and we'll pick up the chat for this game and build up to Zimbabwe against Pakistan. Join us then on Maruti Suzuki presents ESPN Cricket Info T20 Timeout.